Greetings from Buffalo, the Miami of the North. And I'm not, everybody's asking me if I'm retiring, and I tell them, nuns retire when we reach room temperature. So, very grateful to Archbishop Thompson. And by the way, who's that old lady up there? Would you get her off the stage, please? And to Gina, and to the entire, and to Mickey Lentz, whom I've known since we were 9, I think, which is about a couple of years ago. And it's been a wonderful 53 years in Catholic education. Of course, I started when I was 9. But I'm very happy to have watched young people up here on this stage and on the screen, because we have to keep remembering it's not about buildings, it's not about the adults. It's always about the kids, isn't it? And so welcome here tonight to Catholics Night Out. I gave this talk a little bit of a title, and I called it Plus ça change, plus ça m'aime. The more things change, the more they remain the same. And so what I'd like to do is a little retrospective. I think it's good for us once in a while as we're driving to look in the rearview mirror. Not that we stare in the rearview mirror, but that we look in the rearview mirror once in a while to see where we've been. Take a check of where we are, and then maybe consider where we need to be. There's a certain nostalgia about Catholic schools that is both healthy and unhealthy. The healthy part is the good feeling that people of my generation, which is like Generation B, like right after Adam and Eve. They talk about Generation X and Generation Y, that's what you know. People of my generation get when they think of their own Catholic school experience. Nuns, clapping the erasers, nuns, washing the blackboards, nuns, Palmer method handwriting, nuns. Well, you get my drift. The experience of attending Catholic school, as I did, in the 50s and 60s is unique to this day. It was indeed an experience, one that has been embellished and enlarged over time. And although the people who had that experience can laugh, poke fun, even shake their heads in wonderment, we really did that? There's a warm, fuzzy knowledge that in the midst of it, we all received a unique, world-class education, one that accompanied us and kept us grounded through the Vietnam War, the freewheeling 60s, the many cultural revolutions, and the fads that would expose kids to God knows what. That was healthy. The unhealthy aspect about that certain nostalgia is a certain neuralgia. The notion that Catholic schools never changed, but entered a kind of stasis, like frozen sleep you find in science fiction movies. Nothing, in fact, is more certain than the fact that Catholic schools have never been the same. So let's go back. First of all, there were Catholic schools in this country before there were public schools in this country. We sometimes tend to forget that. The idea of the common school was found in Catholic schools before it was found in government schools. The first of these schools, although founded by missionaries, were staffed by laypersons. The Council of Baltimore in 1884 said that every parish would have a Catholic school. As a matter of fact, my own bishop, Bishop McQuaid of Rochester, first bishop of Rochester, told the pastors, "You will not build a church until you have built a school." And so the schools were churches. They had mass and school on Sundays. The schools were churches. Right away, there were difficulties in paying for them because the Catholic schools served the poor immigrants. But the mission of those first Catholic schools was to keep newly arrived immigrants, and even oldly arrived immigrants, Catholic, to keep them safe in their Catholic faith. Early on, there were discussions among church prelates and division among them. Should those immigrants be American and thus go to public school, or should they be Catholic and thus go to Catholic school? And of course, in the mid-1800s, the know-nothings, the anti-Catholics, that said that the newly arrived Catholics really had divided loyalties. Maybe they were not really American. With the explosion of the immigrants between the 1890s to the 1920s, bishops found that they had a very hard time staffing their Catholic schools, and so the nuns arrived. Tons of nuns, lots of nuns. They provided what became of either a free or a cheap education. I know that when I turned 65, I went to Social Security, and I wanted to sign up for Social Security, and so they needed my earnings. And I found out that in 1965, the first year that I taught, when I was 9, that is, I earned the tidy sum of $412 that year. That's why I come here, I get a good meal. Not only that, but the nuns taught people that other schools wouldn't teach. The nuns taught the freed slaves and the children of the freed slaves how to read and write. The nuns taught the Native Americans. The nuns taught the newly minted Americans, the new immigrants who were poor. They gave a specific charism to each of the schools. You went to a Benedictine school. You went to a Mercy school. You went to a Sisters of St. Joseph school. And they just yelled at you a little differently. That was all. And then things changed. The 60s happened. And they say about the 60s, if you remember the 60s, you weren't there. And you know exactly what I'm talking about, don't you? They developed more choices than ever. We now have public, charter, homeschools, private schools. Once again, our Catholic schools are staffed by dedicated lay people, laymen and women, who don't do it for the money. Surprise. And they will tell you, no, it's not about the money. It's about passing on the gospel, the good news. And that's why they do it. We still, in some places, have difficulties paying for our schools, but we have to keep our eyes on the prize, that the mission is still to spread the gospel, the good news. I just love the way they said it. They said it so much better than I, so I'm not even going to try. To this day, there is still no consensus, even within the church, on the necessity for Catholic schools. After all, most Catholic children don't attend Catholic schools. And so why not have other programs for them? I'm sorry, but nothing matches up to the Catholic school, where a child comes 5.5 to 6 hours a day and learns to live the gospel, not just learn about it, and has the chance to live as Jesus did. We are fortunate to be back where we started and confronted with some more basic questions. So what I'd like to do is now address, so where do we go from here? From my perspective of 53 years, I have some issues that I think we need to consider. And I would ask you to bear with me. First of all, I think as far as our Catholic schools go in this country, we need a refounding. We need to go back to the future. We need to rediscover what it was. I have often reminded of Catherine of Siena. She's off to Rome to tell the Pope, come on, you got to get with it here. And somebody says to her, well, what can you do going to Rome? You're only a woman. And she says, Catherine of Siena alone, nothing. Catherine of Siena and God, everything. And so we need to remember that. Mother Theodore Guerin didn't come here wealthy. Mother Theodore Guerin did not come here owning lots of land. Mother Theodore Guerin came here with nothing but her faith. And look at the legacy that she left the people of Indiana. Our schools should reflect the missionary character of the church. We need to underscore the teaching of the poor to be the focus of our schools and the signature ministry of our church. Secondly, I so envy you here in Indiana. In the words of Gordon Ramsay, wow, wow, wow. You have education tax credits. You have vouchers. New York State will be the 51st state to get that. But you've done it. Your accomplishment highlights the support and affirmation of your Catholic schools. They are schools that offer a chance, not merely a choice, to so many children who otherwise would be kept on the margins. Please treasure this wondrous gift. It ensures your bright future. Thirdly, I think we need to take a serious look at teachers who teach in our Catholic schools. There are some dioceses that only hire Catholic teachers, but in some parts of the United States, that is not very practical. So what kind of religious formation can we provide? We need to do a better job of enculturating our teachers into Catholic schools. When I was going to Catholic school myself in the 50s and 60s, of course we had the Baltimore Catechism, but we had a kind of Catholicism that got you to know, got it ingrained in you. And I wish that we had that for our teachers. So many of our Catholic school teachers did not go to Catholic school themselves, and so missed out on that. And that's just the enculturation. We can only do this by ensuring that a close, supportive community exists in the school, that everyone is focused on the job at hand, and that the school and the church are on the same page. I've come to the conclusion that there is a no-lose formula for successful Catholic schools. It's a supportive pastor, it's an excellent leader in the school, and it's supportive parents and a board. That's what makes it. If you can follow that formula, you've got it. Fourthly, I think we need to attend to the leadership in our schools. Principals need to feel supported and nurtured. It's the loneliest job in the world. You do everything. You cook the lunch, and then you clean up after the lunch, and then you clean out the sink after the lunch. You monitor the bathrooms, and then you clean the bathrooms. Principals do everything. Let's find ways in which we show appreciation to principals and foster in them the flame that burns within them for their Catholic school. Fifth, we need to support our clergy, our priests who support Catholic schools. Many priests don't want to take a parish that has a Catholic school because it's a headache. There's a need to have facilities for ensuring that pastors and priests and deacons who take responsibility for a Catholic school are assured that they have support from parents and from the students. My heart was beating right out of my chest when I saw that pastor sitting there with those kids at Mass and talking to those kids and saying, I truly treasure my Catholic school. I get to see you. What a chance to see your parishioners every single day. We need to continue to improve governance. We need to call on the expertise of those who support Catholic schools to help govern those schools. Stable, supportive, effective boards will stabilize Catholic schools and ensure their future. As we continue to work toward true choice in education through local, state, and federal levels, we need to be very serious about convincing the church, clergy, and laity of the necessity of Catholic schools. Nothing else works. They are necessary to the church and to the country. And finally, we need to look to the Magi to guide us to action. What about the Magi? We don't know who they were or how many. The Gospels don't say that there were 3. We do know there were women in the group because they stopped and asked directions. Unlike Moses, who did not ask directions, 40 years wandering around in the desert, and he never made it. The Magi read the signs of the times. They knew what those signs meant. They acted on the signs of the times. They didn't just sit there and say, They asked directions. They were prepared. They brought their gifts. They didn't have to stop at Walmart and pick them up. They showed up. They completed their journey. And finally, they returned a different way. And they were changed forever by the experience that they had. And that is what we must guarantee our students, and our teachers. Congratulations and best wishes, especially to the honorees of this 2018 celebration. How uplifting it is to see so many of you come out for an evening of celebration of this, a unique, most valuable gift of the church to the world, the nation, the Archdiocese, Catholic schools. Let us value what has gone before. Let us maintain what we now have, and let us dream and pray for what we can accomplish. We've done it before. We can have no doubts that we can do it again. I'd like to end with one of my favorite verses, and it goes like this. We will need hope. We will need courage. Above all, we will need to keep our eyes fixed on the Lord. And then we will know, as we have always known, that this was worth the length of our days and the time of our lives. Thank you. God bless you.